6 gigahertz. The
Yeah.
future is now, Paul.
Yeah, but you know what? When you turn on your computer from there, my lights dim here. Right? I
Yeah.
think not the average. I think the probably just the average, the what do you call it? The run rate of the normal energy usage is like 150 watts.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think you need that power plug you use for like a Tesla or a dryer in order to power this thing.
It's, in my
You
garage, I
know?
have a NEMA 1450 hooked up to a 60 amp breaker.
Yeah. It's like the scene in Christmas Vacation where the guy's lights come on and you see the whole, city's lights go off and then the nuclear power thing comes on and come back.
It's
It's
got
good
to be
stuff.
hot. I mean, you
Yep.
probably cook eggs on that thing.
Yeah, but you know what? It's impossible to look at something like that and not think what you always think about Intel, which is like, this is where they add value. They're good at this. They're good at raw power, right? They're not good at the thin light, 2 nanometer thing. But man, you could probably, the chip must be so big you can see the literal etchings inside of it.
Well, what's the cooling apparatus you got to strap to this thing? Like, do you need a...
Yeah. So it's an aquarium full of water. Yeah, I don't know.
It's actually a coral reef that probably heats the water so much. It's just that nice. That's how we're going to solve the coral reef. They're going to start putting these things. This is dumb. I'm going to end that.
Just also thinking about fish floating on the top of the
Save
thing.
the
But
Great
anyway,
Barrier Reef,
yes,
6 gigahertz chip at a time.
there's nothing as Intel as this, I think is the best way to put it.
It's a big chip.
Yeah. Honestly, if this is what you want and
Is
you're a
it?
gamer or whatever, it's not expensive. It is expensive, but I mean it's not like $1,000 or anything. It's reasonable.
How many dollars is this thing?
I think I know I just said that.
$6.99.
What is it?
$6.99.
$6.99. Yeah. And it's where it should be, right? How much does a Xeon chipset cost? I mean,
Oh, I didn't realize it was. It's a 12. Oh no, it's 13th gen.
yeah. It's
Okay.
this is the latest addition to the family of chips they announced last fall, right? Which is the desktop chipsets, right? So at CES they announced the mobile chips. It's the normal schedule, but this is like a new, or well, I don't know if it's new now, but a newish type of chip too, because I think it's an HS series, as opposed to what used to be called K or HK. Core i9 only, I bet it doesn't work with docks though, huh? Because Intel.
Thank goodness it's a Friday.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, this week has been what, like 17 days long? Is that
Yeah,
what it
there's been
feels
a
like?
lot this week.
So speaking of which, we're not really speaking of anything, but you were talking yesterday, maybe offline. I don't think you mentioned it on the show. You were getting some kind of weird gale force winds and
Yes.
whatever. And around 5 p.m. yesterday, I was upstairs working on a laptop, and I was like, "Is that thunder?"
I know.
And for in January, then I'm like, I remember what you were talking about. I'm like, oh right, of course we're getting this now. And dude, it lasted for 15 minutes and it never came back. It must have sailed north of us or something.
I don't know. There were tornadoes in Alabama. I think some people died from.
That's true. Yeah.
Not what we expect in January. We expect snowstorms and
Yeah,
Atlanta to be
this
covered in
climate change
ice.
thing is nonsense. The world is flat, and I'm sure the FAA has an advanced modern computer system, so everything's fine. And other facts will be available in my new book, Sasquatch, making the case for North America's largest mammal, which actually I guess he wouldn't be.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a whale.
I'm just making it up as I talk. Don't think too much about it.
The longer you think about it, the worse it gets.
Exactly. Just let it go.
Speaking of things that are worse, Microsoft's not getting a whole bunch of money for HoloLenses. They're going to get a little bit more money to build another version to see if that one is not terrible, I guess.
I think it's going to be, and I think this ends. That said, I don't know if you read it. And the New York Times has an interview or an article about and spoke to Satya Nadella and whatever the guy's name who started OpenAI, who, by the way, started Y Combinator before that, interestingly.
Wasn't it Sam Altman?
I don't remember his name, but that sounds like it could be right.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the only new fact that came out of this article, but it's worth reading. But Microsoft, everyone knows they invested $1 billion, and they are rumored to be investing another 10. What we didn't know is since that $1 billion investment, they've invested another 2 to 3 billion.
Oh.
Quietly. So they've I have my doubts about Satya Nadella, but this article makes the case that he saw this as a competitive advantage very early on and said we need to push on this really hard. And the way the article ends, if I'm not mistaken, is this someone else being quoted saying, "There's only two ways this ends: where this becomes a capability everyone has, or this is like the 1990s and it's a capability only Microsoft has."
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing because Microsoft has been very quiet. I would say on the world stage, probably since its EU antitrust stuff. I mean, it's just been, kind of an also-ran, even though it's, the second biggest public company in the world. That could be a Microsoft resurgence would be good for my career.
Especially retirement, right? You can say.
Exactly. I was just looking at that this morning, actually. I could use a little bump, So.
Yeah, we'll see. They're putting a lot of money into it. The business arrangement there is very interesting, though. It's something like once OpenAI pays back Microsoft, they don't have any ownership.
Well, unless that $10 billion investment does go through, that's only a rumor. But the rumor is they end up with, if everything works out, they would end up with 49% of the company.
No. That's what I mean.
True.
So
okay,
again, we're all talking rumors here. Nothing has been written out. But okay, so Microsoft says, "Woof, here's your $10 billion." They get, it's like 75% of all net income until they get their $10 billion back. And then that's just gone.
Oh, I thought there was an ownership stake happening.
I think that OpenAI can come out of this in many years ahead, potentially not owned by Microsoft.
OpenAI will become Skynet.
Yeah, pretty much.
Interesting.
Because they're a nonprofit.
Well, no, they're not. So they started as a nonprofit. Actually, that's in the article too. They're actually not a nonprofit.
Oh, no longer?
Yeah. That was an early thing, I guess. Like that. This is the thing. I brought this up yesterday on Windows Weekly. I was like, when Microsoft announced 3 years ago that they, or 3.5 years ago, whatever, they were investing in OpenAI, I was like, yeah, whatever. They invest in all this stuff. You get little things like this fungible acquisition where you're like, oh, yeah, sure. It becomes part of their data center. Well, who cares? Like this happens all the time. Like to me, that was like a sleepy little announcement. And then this stuff was all happening in the background without anyone's knowledge, And that, by the way, another reason to read the article, they talk about the different milestones that OpenAI hit, like GPT-2, GPT-3 that led up to ChatGPT. And Microsoft saw this stuff. It is possible. In fact, I would say it's likely that Microsoft has been, when Microsoft has in the past said something like, hey, this new Teams feature is AI based, or hey, this new whatever is AI something. We all were like, ha, yeah, so is spell checking, so is grammar, who cares? But actually, it's highly likely that a lot of that stuff is based, at least in part, in some of the work that came out of OpenAI. This stuff is in some way, maybe on a small level, I don't know, no one really knows, but on some level is infused around Microsoft now, right? It's interesting.
Yeah. It also makes you wonder about Microsoft's own internal AI efforts and how all those people feel right about now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how that, I don't know how that interaction works. And not just that interaction, but, Microsoft Research as an entity was started for a very specific purpose. It had a very specific goal in mind. It would bring things up to some point. It used to work like the Insider program used to work. We would test and test and test. And then we'd say, hey, this thing is good. Maybe the Office team should look at this, or the Windows team, or whatever it was. I don't know if that's how it works now, but I wouldn't be surprised to discover that there were competing teams of, I'll call them researchers, working on future forward technologies at Microsoft that in some ways may overlap or compete with each other. So the addition of OpenAI as kind of an external investment partner, whatever you want to call it, maybe it doesn't change the dynamic too much, other than the fact that obviously there would be a competitive need to beat those people or whatever internally, I would imagine. But I don't know. I actually don't know how it works. I don't know if someone just comes down and says, hey, you're working with those guys. Deal with it.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know. Yeah. It's interesting.
Is it?
It is.
Yeah. Actually, this one
It's more interesting than the shape of a freaking search bar on Windows 11. I can tell you that. Like so, that would be where I would start. So yeah, we're still dicking around about that. Stupid. Oh God, I need there to be more substance in this thing. The surface level stuff is like, oh God, I get it. It's a shape. Jeez, move on.
Yeah.
Pick a shape. Could it be a trapezoid? I don't know. Maybe test it.
Pentagon, maybe that would be.
Sure. Yeah.
Who knows?
Pentagram.
Pentagon.
Whatever it takes.
They should do that. They give Clippy Chat GPT, call him Dark Clippy, and then it's just
exactly.
That's the true dark mode of Windows.
Dark mode Clippy. It looks like you're trying to make a resume. I'm going to secretly undermine you.
Yeah, I'm going to inject some bad
it's like,
data.
Hey, we got your resume. We noticed it was completely plagiarized. You're like, oh. Yep. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, it'd be fun when this stuff's in Word, and then somebody just types in, who was Henry Ford, and just turns that paper in. I mean, that's already
like a 2,800 word AI created, Did you ever, when I was in high school, I guess, we had an English class that required us to write these really long papers from time, maybe once a semester or something, I don't remember. But I was convinced that there's no way the teacher could read these things, right? Because there were 30 kids in my class, and there's probably 3 classes or more that are taking this class elsewhere with the same guy. So he's got hundreds of these things to read. They're 15, 20, whatever pages long. And I was convinced there was no way this guy read this. So right in the middle of one of the things I wrote, there's absolutely no way you were reading this. I don't even know why I spent time on this. And he circled it and he said, wrong again, Thurrott. I thought it was so beautiful. But you could imagine AI doing something, not doing something like that, but rather in the middle of some AI created work, it would just be like a paragraph of nonsense,
Yep.
that has nothing to do with the topic. Where if you actually were reading it, you'd be like, wait, what? And that would tip you off to the gremlin.
For now, until somebody figures out a way around that. Then there's AI to check the AI. And then it's just AI all the way down.
We have Isaac Asimov's rules of AI, which is what we need.